Welcome to r/Am I the Butthole, where OP gets revenge against the neighborhood Karen. Today's episode is sponsored by ExpressVPN. At the time of writing this, P-Hub is now banned in 16 states, including, tragically, my home state of Virginia. Who knows? Maybe our idiot congressman will keep this up and get adult content banned in all 50 states. For this, and many other reasons, you need a VPN service like ExpressVPN. A VPN allows you to change your location to access content that might be unavailable in your region. YouTube videos, Netflix shows, and content on Amazon Prime. Pretty much every single streaming service. I like to use ExpressVPN to access Netflix's full content library. It's such a ripoff. You're already paying an overpriced subscription service, and then Netflix is going to tell you can't watch a movie because you happen to live in the wrong country. But a VPN offers so much more than that. It also protects your privacy, so that when you do visit those adult videos, your ISP can't see where you're going. It's a good idea to keep your private time private. Find out how you can get 3 months free by scanning the QR code on screen, clicking the link in the description box below, or by going to expressvpn.com/r/. Am I the butthole for refusing to let my neighbor use my driveway after she's been parking in it without asking? I'm a 30-year-old woman, and I live in a suburban neighborhood with my husband. We have a double driveway that fits both of our cars comfortably, and we've lived here for about 5 years. Our next-door neighbor, Linda, moved in a year ago. She's an older woman in her late 50s who seems friendly on the surface, but has started to cause some issues. It started a few months ago when I came home and found her car parked in my driveway. At first, I thought that it was a mistake, so I knocked on her door and asked her to move it. She apologized, said that she had guests over and her driveway was full, so I let it slide that time. But then, it kept happening. I'd come home to find her car, or sometimes her guests' cars, in my driveway. I told her multiple times that it wasn't okay, but she'd just shrug it off and then move the car when I asked, often saying things like, "It's not like you were using it right then." The final straw happened last week. My mother-in-law, the one who isn't exactly my biggest fan, was visiting, and I specifically asked her to park in the driveway so that she wouldn't block the street. When we came home from running errands, Linda's car was there again. My mother-in-law was already in a bad mood, and she snidely remarked, "Wow, even your neighbors walk all over you. I wonder why." I was furious. I knocked on Linda's door and told her this was the last time she was parking in my driveway, period. She got defensive, saying that I was being unreasonable since she only does it occasionally and that it's just a driveway, not a sacred space. Since then, she started giving me the cold shoulder, and I've noticed her glaring at me whenever I'm outside. My husband says I might have gone too far, and I should have just let it slide, especially since she's older and it's not worth the drama. Even my mother-in-law shockingly agreed, saying that I should pick my battles. But I feel like it's my property, and I shouldn't have to keep asking someone not to use it without permission. At the same time, maybe I overreacted by confronting her so harshly. Then, one day later, OP posted an update. Well, today, things finally came to a head. I woke up early for an appointment only to find Linda's car parked in my driveway again, blocking me in. My husband had already left for work, so I knocked on her door and waited for about 15 minutes, but there was no answer. I even tried calling her, but her phone went straight to voicemail. I was running late and completely fed up, so I called a towing company. They arrived quickly, and as they were hooking up her car, Linda stormed out of her house, furious. She yelled at me and at the tow truck driver, calling me petty and claiming I could have just waited a bit longer or left a note. I calmly reminded her that I'd asked her multiple times to stop parking in my driveway, but she wasn't having it. She ended up paying the towing fee, and now she's absolutely livid. She's been telling other neighbors that I'm a vindictive control freak, and a couple of them have hinted that I might have gone too far. Even my husband thinks I could have handled it differently and avoided escalating things. And of course, my mother-in-law, who was visiting today, had to chime in with one of her usual subtle digs. As we were sitting down for lunch, she casually remarked, "Some people just can't manage conflicts like adults." I'm pretty sure she wasn't talking about Linda. So now, Linda glares at me every time she sees me. My husband is annoyed about the neighborhood drama, and my mother-in-law is treating this like it's my personal failure. I think that I was justified, but I'll admit this fallout is a lot to deal with. Yeah, all these neighbors who are so concerned about Linda's parking Well, then why don't they let Linda park in their driveway? Damn, man, and what's even worse is your husband. He's the real villain in the story. You're being victimized by a cruel, effectively thieving neighbor, and he's blaming you and letting your mom criticize you? What a useless man. So I guess your husband walked out to his car in the morning to go to work, saw that you were blocked in, and was like, oh well, not my problem, and then just left. What a douche. Am I the butthole for refusing to give up my front row spot at a concert to someone claiming to be disabled? A couple of weeks ago, I traveled to another country to see an artist that I've been a fan of for 6 years. This was a once-in-a-lifetime experience for me, and I've been waiting months for it. I sacrificed a lot financially and mentally to make it happen. Since this was my first and probably only time seeing them, I went all out. I bought great tickets and arrived in line at 5 in the morning, even though doors wouldn't open until 6 at night in freezing cold weather. I waited all day, hungry, cold, and dehydrated. But it was worth it because when the doors opened, I secured a front row barricade spot right up against the stage. This was my dream. Then, a guy behind me tapped me on the shoulder and told me he was disabled. He said the venue was supposed to let disabled attendees in early, but they hadn't. He asked me to give him my spot at the barricade. Here's the thing. I know this venue is very accommodating for disabled attendees. I actually have friends with disabilities who have gone to shows here, and the staff always ensures they get to the front row safely during a designated time frame before it gets too crowded. Now, I'm a very short person, 5'1", and this guy was extremely tall, easily over 5.5 feet. So if I gave him my spot, I wouldn't be able to see anything at all because he would completely block my view. I honestly would have been willing to move if he wasn't so tall, or if I could still see from the second row. However, in this case, I knew that I'd lose the view that I'd waited more than 10 hours for. I tried to compromise. I pointed out that the right side of the barricade was still open and suggested he go there. Since he's so tall, he'd have a great view and he could hold on to the rail for support. However, he refused, saying the view wasn't as good as where I was. While we were talking, that section filled up and he became more insistent. He said that he would have a hard time if he couldn't take my spot. At this point, I got frustrated and explained 3 things. 1, if his disability was that serious, he should be in an accessible section, which is specifically designed for attendees with disabilities. 2, if he insists on being in the standing section, he should have brought a support aid, like a cane. 3, if he spoke to security, they could escort him to a front row disabled seating, which has a fantastic view and is much more accommodating. After hearing this, he called me a butthole and told me to get screwed and left. I feel like he just wanted my spot and wasn't being truthful. The venue offers several options for disabled attendees, and I tried to direct him to alternatives. I feel bad for saying no, but I don't think it was fair for him to ask me to sacrifice my entire experience. The most relevant comment down below comes from Arrowfish. As someone who's done the exact same thing as this guy to see my favorite band, he was scamming you. See it all the time, along with, my friend is holding my spot up front. Can I just squeeze in next to you? Can I just reach past you and grab the barricade with my hand? Once the music starts and there's a push forward, these types will literally try to elbow, push, or crowd you out of the way. That's why the general stance is to stand with feet apart and cross your arms to rest on the barricade. Don't let go and don't stand back with just your hands resting on it. They look for weak spots to wedge in, so don't give it to them. Lol, yeah, it's like a contact sport. Pretty much everyone else is commenting that more than likely the reason why this guy targeted OP is because she's 5'1" and this guy thought that he could intimidate her. So OP, you get 0 out of 5 buttholes. I'm giving this guy 1.5 out of 5. Am I the butthole for accidentally ruining my autistic boyfriend's safe food? My boyfriend loves stew. He wants to eat it every day for every meal. His favorite stew is beef tips and vegetables from a local place, but it's really expensive, like $47 for a big bowl. They don't do small orders for takeout, and he's grossed out by leftovers, so more than half of it gets wasted. We've had a couple of arguments about it. He says I don't understand his brain. I say he doesn't understand our budget. Recently, I looked up some recipes, including doing a dissection of the takeout soup, and tried my hand at making some home-cooked replacement for stew night. He loved it for a few days, and then one night he was hanging out with me in the kitchen and saw me put tomato paste in the pot. He was really upset and demanded that I make the soup without the paste. I told him it wouldn't taste the same, and he said that it would be better because he hates tomatoes. They're not a safe food for him. So I made the soup with no tomato paste, and big surprise, something felt off about it to him. Instead of admitting that the tomato paste was necessary, he threw a fit and told me that he didn't want home-cooked food anymore if I was going to play with him and not take his safe food seriously. He thinks I changed more than just the tomato paste in an effort to get him to admit that he was wrong. $400 in stew orders later, I had an idea to ask the chef when we were picking up the order if there was any tomato products in the stew. And lo and behold, there's tomato in the recipe. Effing tomato paste. In my mind, this was great because I thought that he would get over it if he knew that his original perfect stew had tomato paste. Like, oh, I guess tomato paste isn't so bad then. But it was the exact opposite. He walked out of the restaurant without saying anything, and then refused to eat the stew that night and hasn't ordered it again. And he's been ignoring me while sulking around the house, using his whiny voice a lot and slamming things. His sister also texted me to tell me that I'm a selfish butthole for needing to get back at him by taking his favorite food away. I literally just wanted to stop spending insane amounts of money on stew. I wasn't trying to hurt him or ruin his life. I'm not autistic. I can't really wrap my head around caring this much about a single ingredient. I genuinely didn't see this reaction coming. We've been together for 4 years, and he's only had 3 other fits like this. The other ones were pretty reasonable. Those were also a little less intense and didn't include input from his family. This is the first time anyone in his family has ever spoken to me like this, so I've been back and forth between y'all are overreacting and what have I done? OP, the problem isn't that your boyfriend is autistic. The problem is that your boyfriend is a whiny, entitled baby who also happens to be autistic. The dude really wants $47 per meal and refuses to eat the leftovers and then whines at you for some reason because you wanted to make the food at home for him? That's sweet. That's not mean. Most boyfriends, if their girlfriend decided to learn their favorite dish, would be ecstatic. Instead, this guy's just a tool bag about it. So, OP, you get 0 out of 5 buttholes. I'm giving your boyfriend 1.5 out of 5 buttholes. Am I the butthole for reminding my dad that he didn't pay child support? Growing up, I never really knew my dad. He was in and out of the picture, and in later years, him and my mom would argue over his jail time for not paying child support. My mom died, and I live in her house with my girlfriend and her child. In my adult life, my relationship has been the same with my dad. He reached out after my mom's death, but he never really made the effort, and it always felt that if he tried to have a relationship with me, it was always for a new girlfriend or wife's benefit, not mine. My dad recently had a bad wreck, and his apartment only had stairs. Him and his new wife acted like they would move into my home since it's an old school ranch house, all 1 floor. I told him no. He asked me why I didn't trust him and that he would pay rent. I told him, why would I trust him to pay rent when he never paid my mom child support for years? His wife told me that was a rude thing to say. I told her maybe they should ask one of her kids, she has 5, or one of my dad's 3 other kids because I'm one of 9. I'm not stepping up to help because my dad has never helped me. They accused me of dragging up their past, and I told them their attitude is not going to mesh with mine long term. I was asked to leave the hospital because I was upsetting them while my dad was still there. This one's easy. OP, you get 0 out of 5 buttholes. Your dad gets 3 out of 5 buttholes. That was r/Am I the Butthole, and if you like this content, check out my podcast where I publish the exact same episodes. Also, hit that subscribe button because I put out new Reddit videos every single day.